So I see that we've now reached a critical mass of participants, and we're at 131. So we'll go ahead and jump right into the webinar. I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Robin Goldstein. I'm a Knowledge Services Advisor with the Green Municipal Fund at the Federation of Canadian Municipalities. I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. And we're very excited to present to you today's webinar. It's the first of 5 days of interactive webinars covering the many ways the Green Municipal Fund can help you plan, design, and implement local sustainability projects. Today, we'll be focusing on the soon-to-be-released decision support tool called the Municipal Energy Roadmap. The Energy Roadmap delivers a menu of options that your municipalities can start implementing right away to have the biggest impact on reducing greenhouse gas emissions over the next decade and to support a range of community priorities. If you or your colleagues would like to revisit today's webinar, the session is being recorded and will be online in a few weeks. Before we start, just a quick reminder to please send us your questions through the questions function. We'll respond to them as we go or as well as at the end of the presentation. We will aim to move through as many questions as possible during our time today. And also a reminder that we'll be doing some interactive polling using menti.com. The information to connect is in the chat box. So without further ado, let me introduce today's speaker, my colleague Yvonne Ritchie, who is a project coordinator with the Knowledge and Sector Development team at the Green Municipal Fund. Yvonne, over to you.
Great, thanks very much, Robin. So I'll start us off just by giving us a short introduction to the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, just as a bit of context. So as you may know, the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, or FCM, has been the national voice of municipal government since 1901, and we represent cities and communities across Canada and deliver a range of different programs to help municipalities build more sustainable communities and improve the quality of life for their residents. Our largest program is the Green Municipal Fund, or GMF, which is a $1 billion program funded by the Government of Canada to support municipal efforts to improve air, water, soil quality, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. The Green Municipal Fund has a double mission to support municipal sustainability projects through both funding, as well as knowledge sharing, such as online resources, training sessions, and peer learning activities. And the Green Municipal Fund is focused primarily in 5 different areas: energy, waste, water, transportation, and land use. So over the next few days, this series of webinars will give you a little bit of a chance to learn more about our work, including our existing funding offer and some of our new energy-related initiatives. But the topic of today's webinar is our newest energy resource for municipal energy, for the municipal energy sector, and that is our Municipal Energy Roadmap. And as Robin said, this new decision support tool is aimed at helping Canadian municipalities to identify solutions that are tailored for their local context and to help them transition towards a sustainability and energy future by providing a range of different options to reduce GHG emissions in municipal and community buildings. So through the roadmap, municipalities can explore a range of different technology and policy options that are related to energy efficiency and renewable energy. You can learn about key considerations and questions to ask to help with decision making, as well as access a host of different resources and examples to support implementation. So today we're going to introduce this tool to you and help you get initiated with how you can use it to support your work. To get us started, as Robin mentioned, we're going to use Mentimeter just to interact with each other a little bit more and learn about who's joining us today. So if you haven't already, feel free to open up a new browser on your computer or use your phone and go to menti.com, that's MENTI.com, and enter the code 980853. And you should see the first question on the screen here. That's great. I see numbers coming in, which means it's working. Big representation from Ontario so far. That's great. Nice to see a few folks from out in the Atlantic provinces as well. That's great. Quite a few from Alberta as well. Very, very cool. Just give folks a few more minutes as I see that the numbers are still trickling up. Oh, BC is making the way up too. Okay, that's great. I'll move on to the next question, but of course, feel free to jump in and answer these whenever you get a chance. And if you have trouble connecting, feel free to also enter your questions or your answers into the chat box as well. So the next question is, what type of organization do you work for? Are you part of a municipal government, either staff or elected officials, nonprofit organization, federal or provincial or territorial government, private sector, or something else? So far I see that we're nearly half municipal government staff, which is great. Great to see a few elected officials as well. Decent number from nonprofit and private sector, from government. This is great. Fantastic. All right, and our next question is, does your municipality currently have a plan to reduce GHGs or save energy in either municipal or community buildings? That's great. So we got about half that currently do, and then another quarter or so that are currently developing one. I think we've got a critical mass there as well. So I'll stop the questions now, but we'll have a chance to try this out again a little bit later on as well. Great. So with that, I'll get started with actually talking about the roadmap itself. First and foremost, an important question to answer is why actually develop a roadmap? And the reason is that back in 2017, as GMF was developing its current 5-year strategic plan, this was something that we identified a need for during consultations with municipal stakeholders across the country. One of the things that we heard was that municipalities often have limited internal resources to be able to proactively seek out the best sustainability solutions for the communities. And as a national program working on local sustainability solutions, GMF is uniquely positioned to be able to help communities of different sizes identify meaningful, pragmatic solutions that can help to unlock these different environmental, economic, and social benefits. And so the energy roadmap is really intended to be the first in a series of different roadmaps to support municipal decision making. The roadmap has been in development for a couple of years now at the Green Municipal Fund. It initially began in early 2018 and has involved extensive consultations both with municipalities as well as other key stakeholders from government, industry, and civil society during the initial scoping conversations and during the development process. We worked with the firm Dunsky Energy Consulting on the development of the roadmap content, as well as an advisory group that included C40, the Natural Step and Urban Equation. And in the summer of 2019, the technical content in the report was also reviewed by a number of experts from the Government of Canada, a couple of federal departments, including Natural Resources Canada, as well as Ontario's Independent Electricity Systems Operator. And then over the last few months, we've just been working to finalize the report and are aiming for a release in early July. So in terms of the scope of the roadmap, because energy touches on so many different aspects of how we build and run our communities, we had to focus the energy roadmap onto a few key impact areas, primarily based on those over which municipalities have significant control or influence. So specifically, we ended up focusing the solutions on building level solutions, both at the including municipal and community buildings, as well as local distributed energy solutions like district energy systems and community wind and solar. We've excluded the other GMF sectors, so transportation, land use, water, and waste, again, with the intention that those would be covered in future roadmaps. And that also does include energy that would be used in those processes, so energy used in transportation or in wastewater treatment plants and that kind of thing. To give a little bit of a rationale on why we chose to focus specifically on buildings, the first reason is that we know that by harnessing local opportunities to improve energy performance of buildings, we're also providing a really kind of critical opportunity to tackle climate change. We know that close to 1/5 of Canada's national GHG emissions and up to half of a municipality's local emissions come from energy use in buildings, including municipal, residential, and commercial buildings. And that again, municipalities have either direct control or influence over this energy use through decisions in municipally owned buildings or through policies and programs that affect community buildings. Beyond that, the federal government has also committed to set Canada on a course to net zero GHG emissions by 2050. And we know that municipal governments can take and already are taking a leadership role, really helping to convene community stakeholders and advance this low carbon transition at the local level. The second reason is that beyond reducing GHG emissions, local energy solutions for buildings can also help municipalities tackle a range of different community development priorities. So that includes making buildings healthier and more comfortable places to live and work, and driving significant investment into the local economy. Energy solutions can save municipal tax dollars. They can help residents and business owners save money on their energy bills. For example, the statistic on the screen shows that most homes in Canada were built before 2005 and consume about 20% more energy than the most energy efficient homes built today, which can cost residents an average of $300 or more a year on their utility bills. And beyond savings, improving energy performance of new or existing homes can also be a good time to invest in resiliency measures to protect against extreme weather events like floods or heat waves. So how does the roadmap actually help to accomplish this? Well, the goal of the roadmap is really to meet Canadian municipalities where they are by giving them a menu of different options to choose from over time. And this is based on what will bring the greatest impact, how ambitious different communities are, and what they've already done so far. So the roadmap itself focuses on the most effective technology solutions that municipalities can implement over the next decade to have the greatest impact on GHG emissions. And it also covers a range of policies and programs that your municipality can implement to drive adoption of these solutions. So ultimately what we're aiming for this to be is an additional tool in the municipal toolbox to help bridge that gap between planning and actually implementing sustainable solutions. The report itself is divided into three main sections. The first section is an overview of municipal challenges and opportunities within the municipal energy sector. And then again, similar to this presentation, it gives a walkthrough of how the roadmap is intended to help. In part two, this is a choose your own adventure style section. And this highlights the top building level solutions for reducing GHGs by grid type, which is something that we'll explain in a minute, along with a summary of the additional solutions for community energy generation and the strategies for driving adoption. And then part three contains 15 detailed technical fact sheets that give a deeper dive into each of the solutions and strategies that we talk about in the report. So we won't go over a very detailed methodology of what was used in the report, but it is important to kind of highlight up front some of the key assumptions and limitations. The technologies that are covered in the report are selected based on their potential to reduce emissions in a typical building with a typical set of upgrades under current conditions. So there's a lot of assumptions that are built into that. In particular, we use provincial and territorial level data from 2019, and that includes average climate, 2019 energy prices, the types of heating fuels that are used in buildings in each province and territory, and a few other assumptions to be able to estimate the GHG and financial impacts of the different technologies that we assessed. It's also worth noting that the analysis doesn't consider existing incentive programs, which can significantly improve the cost effectiveness of these solutions. And it's not accounting for fluctuations in energy prices. So essentially what this means is that the results are a very high level estimate of the GHG and financial impacts. And we're recommending throughout the report that municipalities should continue to undertake further studies to assess whether a solution is right for their community. And then the last point that I would mention here is that because the technology landscape is constantly evolving, we recognize as well that there may be many other high impact solutions that arise in the future. And that we're aiming to be able to update the roadmap over time to reflect this changing landscape and the new solutions that may arise. So that's a quick overview of what the roadmap is and why GMF developed it. I'd like now to take a closer look at how we actually can use the roadmap to find relevant solutions for your community. Robin, have there been any questions in the chat box yet?
No, we're all good.
All right, good. That sounds great. So we'll move on then. So one of the central ideas behind the roadmap was to develop recommendations for municipalities across Canada that are tailored to their local context. And so in looking at opportunities to reduce emissions in the building sector, the primary factor that emerged for prioritizing energy efficiency and low carbon energy technologies at the local level was the carbon intensity of the provincial or territorial electricity grid. And so when we talk about carbon intensity, we mean the amount of equivalent carbon dioxide that's generated per kilowatt hour of electricity consumed. And so as you can see from the map here, we've grouped each province or territory into one of three categories. In the green, low carbon grids, the low carbon grid type, which includes Yukon, British Columbia, Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, and Newfoundland. And these provinces and territories all generate over 90% of their electricity from low carbon sources. In the moderate carbon grid type, in the yellow, this includes Northwest Territories, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. These provinces and territories all produce between 50 and 90% from low carbon sources. And then lastly, the high carbon grid type in the blue includes Alberta, Saskatchewan, Nunavut, and Nova Scotia, and they all produce less than 50% of their electricity from low carbon sources. And so there's two reasons why the carbon intensity of the electricity grid is an important factor in assessing different solutions. The first reason is that it determines whether electrification, so switching from fossil fuels to electricity, is a viable solution to reduce GHG emissions in buildings. This graph here shows the intensity of carbon emissions from natural gas and heating oil on the right-hand side, compared to the electricity from the grid in each province or territory. So we can see that in areas with very low carbon grids, switching to electrical power can virtually eliminate your GHG emissions, but in areas with high carbon grids, electrification can actually increase emissions. And the second reason is that it determines which end uses produce significant greenhouse gas emissions, and therefore which end uses are worth focusing your efforts on. So as you can see in this graph here, the majority of emissions in low carbon grids on the left-hand side are from space heating and water heating, represented by the green and the blue bars. But in moderate and in especially high carbon grids, some of the other electrical end uses like plug loads, lighting, auxiliary motors, and space cooling, they can also be significant sources of emissions and can be the focus of your GHG reduction efforts. So once you've identified what your grid type is, the next step in the report is to use the roadmap to review your highest impact opportunities for GHG reductions. And so as we've highlighted earlier, the roadmap presents a series of different technology and policy options that we call solutions and strategies that individually and together help to support either energy efficiency, electrification, again, switching from fossil fuels to electricity, and renewable energy generation in municipal and community buildings. The figure here shows how we group the opportunities into three groups: building level solutions, community level solutions, and strategies. And we'll go through each of these in a little bit more detail. The first section, building level solutions, is what provides a lot of the substance of the report. It's where we've done the most substantive technical analysis to determine the GHG and financial impacts that you would see in a typical building when implementing these solutions. So the list of 8 solutions here is a short list of the highest impact solutions that are covered in the report. There's 4, the top 4 listed there are all related to space heating. So this includes heat pumps, which, as you may know, are very efficient compared to traditional methods of space heating. And in the context of the roadmap, we talk about them in 2 ways. You're either replacing a gas or oil-based heating system with an electric heat pump, or you're replacing electric resistance heating like baseboards and electric furnaces. The next space heating solution is building envelope upgrades. So this includes anything like insulation, high quality windows, ceiling air leaks, and anything else to improve the shell of the building. Improved HVAC controls includes implementing technologies like smart thermostats and building energy management systems to control how and when your building uses energy. And then beyond space heating, we discuss low carbon water heating. And here we highlight 3 different technologies that can reduce GHG emissions. So again, switching to electric water heating from oil or gas-based systems, as well as using solar power or gray water heat recovery. High efficiency lighting and reduced plug loads, number 6 on the list, cover other ways to reduce building energy consumption through upgrading lighting to energy efficient bulbs, improving lighting controls, installing more efficient appliances and other electronic devices. Rooftop solar PV is the renewable energy solution to provide on-site clean energy and offset utility bills. And then lastly, we also talk about high efficiency indoor ice rinks. This one is a little bit different than the other ones because it's presented as a distinct municipal building type. But because indoor ice rinks use large amounts of energy and many are in need of upgrade across Canada, they represent a very high impact opportunity to improve energy efficiency in a common municipal building type. So each of these different building level solutions is also broken out into two groups. So residential buildings, which are based off of a typical single family home, and commercial and municipal buildings, which are based off of a typical office building in the analysis. And in the case of indoor ice rinks, we also use a typical municipal arena for our analysis. So in the roadmap, depending on what grid type your community falls under, you would then be able to kind of sort through the list of these 8 solutions and identify which ones have the highest GHG impact for each building type. So we'll take a quick look at each grid type. In low carbon grids, as you can see here, the highest impact solutions, again, mainly focus on reducing fossil fuel consumption in buildings through electrification and to a lesser extent, energy efficiency of systems that use natural gas or heating oil for space and water heating in particular. So the solutions with the highest impact include heat pumps, replacing gas or oil systems in both commercial and residential building types, as well as building envelope upgrades, among others. And you'll also notice here that high efficiency indoor ice rinks are a promising solution, and this is consistent across all of the grid types. In moderate carbon grid types, energy efficiency, electrification, and renewable energy solutions are all promising approaches to reducing GHG emissions. Solutions of note again include the indoor ice rinks, heat pumps replacing gas, oil, or electric resistant systems, improving HVAC controls, and rooftop solar PV systems. And then lastly, in high carbon grids, the solutions here focus on energy efficiency and renewable energy generation. So given again that the carbon intensity of electricity in this grid type is higher than that of gas or oil, switching to electricity can increase GHG emissions unless those technologies are exceptionally efficient. So solutions with a high impact here include rooftop solar PV, heat pumps when it's replacing electric resistance, and high efficiency lighting and reduced plug loads. So for each of the different grid types and building types, so low, high, or moderate carbon grid types, and then residential or municipal and commercial buildings, the roadmap includes a detailed summary table of these top building level solutions, which is shown in the screenshot here. And so for example, this is a screenshot of the table for residential buildings for the low carbon grid type. The list shown here mirrors the one that I showed a few slides back. But we can see that the technologies are ranked from highest to lowest GHG impact on a 5-point scale, and it's also broken out by heating fuel, so electricity, heating oil, or natural gas. In this case, only oil or gas are shown because those are the ones where it makes sense to switch to electricity. The middle color-coded section shows the estimated annualized return on investment for each technology, which is based on the average energy and climate data and the average energy prices in 2019. And these are rated between as high, medium, low, or negative, or non-applicable where the fuel type isn't used. And it's also important to note that these are technologies that are looked at in isolation in the analysis. So if you're taking a holistic approach to energy upgrades, like implementing building envelope upgrades at the same time as a heat pump, this can significantly improve the cost effectiveness of these solutions. So these numbers are really just indicative of a single upgrade with only that one technology. On the second column from the right, we've also included a qualitative analysis of the types of co-benefits that can be achieved by implementing these solutions, so on a 4-point scale here. And these include an assessment for ability to contribute to jobs, overall billing resilience, and health and comfort for residents. And the final column on the right lists the strategies that are relevant for driving the adoption of each solution. And those are the ones that we'll go through more in the next section. So at this point, you can focus in on the results for your province and territory and then use that to select one or more solutions to drive down further. For example, if we were to choose the top solution from a GHG perspective, in this case, this is electric heat pumps replacing oil or gas. And we can see that across all of the provinces and territories there, it has an excellent return on investment for buildings that are heated with oil, but less so for natural gas heated buildings for most provinces. And that means is that what that essentially means is that in the short term, things like incentive programs will be important to be able to improve the cost effectiveness of this technology. Alternatively, we may be interested in solutions that provide really strong co-benefits. So we can see from this table here that building envelope upgrades actually score the highest across the board for all three types of co-benefits assessed here. Beyond the building level solutions, the roadmap also looks at two solutions to generate low carbon energy at the community level, namely district energy systems, which supply heating and sometimes cooling to multiple buildings from a centralized source and distributing that energy through buried underground pipelines, and community wind and solar energy generation, which refers to renewable energy projects that are owned by local residents, businesses, or municipalities and provide electricity to multiple buildings. So in the roadmap, we do focus only on wind and solar, but this can also extend to geothermal, to biomass, and to other sources of renewable energy. Because district energy systems and community wind and solar can take so many different shapes and sizes across Canada, this is one instance where it wasn't really possible for us to assess the potential impacts from a quantitative perspective, at least not in a way that would be comparable across municipalities. So the report looked at it from more of a qualitative perspective when it came to assessing these solutions. But in general, district energy systems offer a way to achieve significant GHG reductions in all grid types. For renewable energy generation, this solution can prove highly impactful from a GHG reduction perspective in moderate and high carbon grid types to help reduce fossil fuel consumption. But in low carbon grids, it's also very beneficial because the solution can support energy security and help to reduce electricity demand from the provincial or territorial grid, which is essential when you're electrifying so many of your buildings. So in this section of the roadmap, you'll also find some key considerations for each of these solutions, including what are their advantages and challenges, and what are different options that municipalities can use to adopt these solutions in their communities. So I'll pause here now and just ask you to go back to Mentimeter and use this as an opportunity to just reflect on some of the work that you're doing in your community. So we're curious to know of the technology options that we've discussed so far, are there certain ones that you are actively working on or that you're hoping to learn more about? And this is an open-ended question, so if you go back to Mentimeter, you should be able to type it in and you can just enter your thoughts directly. Okay, so I see so far that solar and wind are both quite popular. And not just for community level solutions, but yes, of course, like to see which of the building level solutions people are interested in as well. Heat pumps are coming up a couple times. Again, solar and wind, building envelope. It's great. District energy a couple of times. Seems like a lot of folks are really working on community level solutions, which is great. I see heat pumps again. Deep retrofits, that's great. Renewable natural gas, okay. Ice arenas, oil to heat pumps. Okay, great. All right, so I'm going to move on to the next section. And that is the strategies that are explored in the report. So in addition to the 10 building and community level solutions, the report also dives into 5 different policy and program options that municipalities can use to drive adoption of these technologies. So the first is lead by example. And what this essentially means is that it's a strategy that covers the different leading practices and policies that municipalities can implement either in their own buildings or through things like community demonstration projects to help encourage broader uptake in the community. So this might be something like showcasing renewable energy innovations or adopting standards for energy efficiency in municipal buildings. Number 2 is incentive programs. So this includes supports that are offered to improve the business case for sustainable energy solutions and encourage broader uptake. So things like discounts, rebates, tax credits, education and training, technical services that the municipality offers. Financing options. This strategy is about financing for efficiency or renewable energy projects, either in municipal buildings or financing programs that municipalities can offer to the community. So, excuse me, things like on-bill financing or property assessed clean energy to help support home energy upgrades in the community. Home and building energy rating and disclosure. This strategy focuses on public sharing of information about the energy performance of homes and buildings. So this is where municipalities can enact either voluntary or mandatory energy rating and disclosure policies or support policies from other orders of government to help encourage change and improve education and demand for energy efficient buildings. And then the last one that's discussed is local development policies and bylaws, which refers to different tools that municipalities can use to encourage development that exceeds or complements provincial building codes. So this is a way to incent developers to build better than code, or if you're in British Columbia, to adopt the BC Energy Subcode. And it also talks about how municipalities can help to ready local markets for expected model building code changes. So as with the previous section, again, this is you'll find a number of key considerations here for the strategies in the roadmap, including another list of their advantages and challenges and some of the options for how municipalities can adopt these in their community. All right, so we have another Mentimeter question here, very similar to the previous one. Which of these policy and program options are you interested in learning more about, or are you actively exploring in your community? And we'll just give a few minutes to enter those in. PACE program, bylaws, financing. Okay, I see that PACE and then local improvement charge financing is a very popular option. Financing again, okay, incentive programs, renewable natural gas. PACE, that's great. Lead by example, energy rating, financing. Community demo site, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, lots of financing, this is great. Okay, I think I will call it here, and then we'll move on, but again, feel free to enter these into the chat box too if you want to provide more information on what you're working on. So once you've reviewed each of the sort of summary sections and identified which solutions and strategies are of most interest to you, the next step in the roadmap is to take a deeper dive into the detailed fact sheets. So on the screen here is a screenshot of the fact sheet for heat pumps replacing gas or oil. And all of the fact sheets kind of begin very similarly with an overview of the solution or strategy. So in this case, it's explaining how heat pumps provide more efficient heating and by drawing heat from outside air or the ground and transferring it to a building, as well as a summary table that highlights what the impact is in the different building types and different grid types. Each fact sheet then addresses a series of different questions about the strategy or the solution in question. So that includes a description of what it is, how it works, and why it's important. There's a number of points on sort of key considerations for implementation. So this includes questions municipalities can ask themselves to know, is it right is it a good fit for my municipality? What does it take to implement? So other important factors that can influence the success of a program or a technology in your community. There's a section on the GHG and financial impacts. So in the case of building level solutions, that's where it goes into more detail about the assumptions used in calculating GHG and financial impacts, and there's a summary table with more details for each of the provinces and territories. And then it's more of a qualitative assessment for each of the community level solutions and strategies. There's a section on the potential co-benefits. So again, more detail here on the different benefits or risks associated with economic co-benefits, so jobs, skill development, resilience to climate, energy reliability, as well as health and safety. There's a section on the current and projected state of the market. So this summarizes how broadly it's been adopted across Canada and sort of expected future state of the market. What are some of the barriers and challenges for workforce capacity? And then lastly, the final two sections are a selection of different municipal examples or case studies to focus on what have other municipalities done in a variety of different municipal sizes and regional geographies. And then lastly, what other resources can support next steps. So this includes links to existing and available reports, websites, and tools to provide further support in implementing these solutions and strategies. So I'll stop here in case there's anything else coming through the chat box that we should address now, and then we'll talk about some examples of what other municipalities have been working on.
Thanks, Yvonne. So there have been a few great clarification questions that have come through. I've been busy responding to them individually. There was a question about energy use in water and wastewater treatment plants, and we definitely recognize that that energy use in those types of municipal facilities are actually a significant portion of municipal energy use and GHG emissions from a corporate perspective. We didn't include them in the scope of this energy roadmap, but it's definitely something that we're looking to advise on and provide more resources on to municipalities going forward. Did want to flag that the Green Municipal Fund does have funding available for studies and capital projects related to improving those types of facilities. And also there was a question about whether we looked at multi-unit residential buildings. So we didn't actually include that as a building type in our analysis, but the commercial building that we used is a sort of an office building with 4 floors and a total floor area of about 2,900 square meters. So that's just as a point of reference. If you have a multi-unit residential building, that's sort of approximately equivalent to that type of sort of four-floor commercial building, then it could be a good point of reference. So those are a couple of the questions that have been coming in. So I think you're good to move ahead, and I'll keep monitoring the chat when we get to the Q&A.
Sounds good. Thanks, Robin. So yes, as I mentioned, now we'll just switch gears and we'll go through a couple of different examples of ways that communities have been implementing different strategies and helping to encourage uptake of technologies to improve building performance in their communities. And so we've picked a selection that are from different grid types across Canada to give you a sense of the work that's being done. And so this first example here is the City of Yellowknife, which has a population of about 20,000 people, and it's located in a moderate carbon grid type. As a northern community, it has particularly unique challenges in its buildings. Heating demand is about twice as much as in southern cities, and it actually accounts for more than 70% of the community's energy use. Originally, the City of Yellowknife was really reliant on heating oil for heating its buildings, which of course is very costly, and especially being shipped over long distances, it was quite costly and something that needed to be addressed. And so over the past decade, the city has been making a number of strides to transition their city facilities from heating oil to wood pellets in order to be more energy and cost efficient and to reduce GHG emissions. So a couple of years back, they developed a biomass district energy system that provides up to 95% of the heating needs of multiple municipal buildings, including the Yellowknife community arena. And the switch to biomass is actually expected to meet almost half of the city's corporate GHG reduction target and save between 140 and 160,000 a year in direct costs. Beyond that, it's also reduced operating costs for the city's recreational facilities, and that has extended benefits for the residents by helping to keep user fees low. The project is a really great example of how leading the way can inspire and encourage others in your community. The city won an FCM Sustainable Communities Award for this project in 2018 and used that as a platform to share their story more broadly. And the city has since been approached by neighboring building owners to discuss the benefits and challenges of implementing similar systems. The second example is the town of Bridgewater, Nova Scotia, with a population of 8,500 thereabouts, which falls under the high carbon grid type. And in 2016, the town of Bridgewater launched a community initiative called Energize Bridgewater to accelerate the transition to a local clean energy economy. And their community energy investment plan is part of that work, and it aims to drive significant investment into energy efficient buildings, community scale energy systems, clean and active transportation, all with the goal of improving affordability for residents and reducing GHG emissions by 80% by 2050. One of the many initiatives that they are implementing is a clean energy financing program, which is being completed in partnership with Clean Foundation, which is a local nonprofit organization in Nova Scotia. So through this program, the municipality is providing financing to help homeowners upgrade the energy efficiency of their homes. Loans are paid back on the property tax bill over 10 years at a rate that is less than the value of the energy savings. And the payment stays with the house and is transferred to the next owner. So as many of you likely know, this is an example of a property assessed clean energy, or PACE, financing program. So eligible upgrade measures in this case actually include some of the highest impact solutions for high carbon grids, like building envelope upgrades, rooftop solar panels, and heat pumps, especially relevant for Nova Scotia communities. And Bridgewater is one of 7 municipalities that's currently participating in this clean energy financing program in Nova Scotia. The next example is the Town of Halton Hills in Ontario, which has a population of about 60,000 people in a low carbon grid type. And some of their work has been building on their award-winning green development evaluation checklist. But in 2014, the town approved a new set of green development standards. And these standards are essentially a highly flexible set of criteria to help promote more sustainable, high performance and efficient residential and non-residential development. So when submitting a development application, proponents can choose the most appropriate design features for the project from a list of different criteria in categories like energy conservation, water conservation and quality, community design, air quality, innovation, and other green features to help meet a minimum point threshold. And so the town is also really working with the development industry to support this implementation through a number of different resources, including online resources, an industry working group, and a Green Development Champion Award. The standards are also really well integrated into their town's objectives through their community sustainability strategy and their community energy plan. And the town also amended their official plan to articulate the town's expectations with respect to sustainable development and integrate the green development standards into the planning process. This was a particularly relevant example that we wanted to highlight, but there are a number of other municipalities that use non-regulatory or voluntary sustainability checklists to help ensure that development proceeds in accordance with the community sustainability values. So there's a number of examples in British Columbia as well, like the City of Vernon, the City of Port Coquitlam, City of Parksville, where they use a sustainability checklist as a form of incentive tool to help basically tying a high score on the checklist to rewards like rebates or fast tracking of development permit applications. And the last example is the City of Edmonton in Alberta, which has a population of about 1 million. So quite a bit larger than other examples here, but also in a high carbon grid. And they launched a campaign called Change for Climate, which is a call to all of their community members to work together to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 35% below 2005 levels by 2035. And one of the initiatives in this campaign is a voluntary home energy rating and disclosure program that is based on the EnerGuide rating system for homes, which is a national standard run by Natural Resources Canada. And homeowners can invite a professional energy advisor to undertake an in-person home evaluation and then receive a rating of the home's energy performance and associated emissions, as well as a report with recommendations on upgrades that could be done to improve the home's efficiency. And so the city offers rebates to be able to cover the cost of the EnerGuide home evaluation. And then the rating is posted on a public map of the city, which allows potential buyers and sellers to compare different homes and use that to make more informed decisions and continue to provide residents with a roadmap of improvements to make their homes more efficient. And so that concludes our overview of the Municipal Energy Roadmap. As we mentioned, the roadmap will be available shortly, and we're hoping to be able to publish that for July 7th. So you should be able to access it with the link on the screen there. And we're also going to be sharing a link via follow-up email as well. We're working as well to develop an interactive tool to help you explore the content in a more interactive, more easily navigable way so that you can access solutions and strategies that are of most interest to your community directly. So that's still an active development, but we're hoping to be able to share that sometime in the coming months. If your community is working on projects like these, as Robin mentioned, or is interested in getting started, the Green Municipal Fund is certainly here to help. You can access our funding page to explore different opportunities for studies and projects. And our client and funding services team is readily available to answer any questions related to funding as well. And then lastly, a number of the energy solutions that we discussed today are also relevant to some of our new funding initiatives. In particular, during the last Menti poll, we saw that a lot of folks are really interested in financing and PACE programs. So we would invite you to register for some of our upcoming webinars this week. The schedule of when those are is now on the screen, and you'll have the opportunity to learn about some of these new initiatives, including our community efficiency financing program taking place next Monday. And just a reminder as well that if you are unable to attend these, we will be making the recordings available on FCM's website in a few weeks. And with that, I will open it back up for any questions.
Thanks, Yvonne. We have about 12 minutes remaining to tackle any questions. Please feel free to continue to add your questions to the questions tab. We have received a few questions in the last few minutes that I've been responding to directly. So Robert Stupka had asked about whether or not provincial incentives would influence the economic return of measures. I'm actually just going to turn my camera on so that people can see me. Definitely, the incentive programs would definitely influence the cost effectiveness of those technologies. We weren't able to consider that in the quantitative analysis that we did in the report because incentive programs vary significantly across the country and are often change over time. There are many municipalities that actually offer top-up rebates to provincial or utility incentives. For example, in BC, there are a number of municipalities that offer top-up rebates for heat pumps. So those are definitely part of the calculation when it comes to cost effectiveness and should be considered at the local level. There was also a very interesting question about whether there are any standards or best practices for energy management in response to COVID. I'm not actually aware of that. The roadmap was largely developed before the COVID pandemic, so we didn't consider that in the report, but I'm curious to know if anyone has heard or is using any best practices. The question mentioned specifically ventilation rates, temperature, humidity control, and other measures. So if anyone knows of any emerging best practices around energy management related to COVID, please feel free to share them in the questions box. And I see there are a few more questions coming in. So there was a question about to speak a little bit more about how the co-benefits and return on investments were identified. So there is a detailed methodology section in the report that explains that. The return on investment was calculated based on an existing building. So assuming the same building type, either a single family home built in the 1970s or a 4-story commercial building, and implementing a suite of upgrades with each of the technology solutions that Yvonne spoke about. So those are the types, like what's included, what's the baseline, and what was the upgrade is included in the detailed fact sheets for each of the technologies. So you can consult them there. And the co-benefits was more of a qualitative analysis based on kind of the professional expertise of the project team that worked on the report. So it's sort of a comparative assessment of job creation, resilience, and comfort and health and safety types of impacts that could result. So all that information is included in the detailed report. We also have a response from one of participants responding to the COVID question, who's aware of a company based in Edmonton that's working on bringing ozone-based filtration systems, which you retrofit into your home furnace or air filtration system and make the air filtered. So that's very interesting to know. There's also a question about the use of hydrogen. So Mark Kirby is asking, has any consideration been given to the actions municipalities can take to decarbonize their gas grid through the use of hydrogen? This is a high impact approach for all regions, even with high carbon grids, and provides a choice for residents in how to decarbonize that may be more convenient and cost effective than electrification. Yvonne, did you want to take that one, or would you like me to respond?
Yeah, so maybe I would just add that throughout the report, I mean, there's many opportunities where there's high impact solutions that are not necessarily addressed in the scope of the report, simply because there may not be as actively developed in the current market in Canada, or it simply wasn't within the scope of what we were covering. But it's certainly an opportunity for the future to address hydrogen potentially in a future edition of the roadmap. I know that wasn't specifically within scope here, but it's certainly a valid option that I think it would be excellent to see more case studies, examples of municipalities that are using hydrogen.
There's also a question that came in about the use of liaising with sector specialists or trade allies to promote energy efficiency programs and projects. Typically, in this case, calling out the regulated sector like water, wastewater, and health. So, like I mentioned, we didn't specifically look at water, wastewater systems in the energy roadmap, but in terms of engaging sector and trade allies, I think that's very important. In the community efficiency financing initiative that GMF is currently has recently launched, we're the engaging contractors and energy advisors and others at the local level, potential delivery partners, is really key to the success of home energy upgrade programs with that financing component. So I would say that is definitely a best practice when it comes to those types of programs, and I'll defer to others with respect to water and wastewater systems specifically. I'm not seeing any other questions come in. We have a few more minutes. I'm happy to field any more questions from folks on the line. So there is also a question about whether policies to decarbonize energy sources were considered. And by energy sources, I'm not sure exactly what you mean, Robert. If you could specify, if you could add a little bit more detail to your question. We definitely are looking at, the calculations that we included in the roadmap are point in time analysis. So we're using the provincial and territorial grid carbon intensities from 2017. Obviously, those will change over time as there's, as different provincial and territorial policies are put in place and kind of changes. There's some ambitious targets being set to also reduce the carbon intensity of the grid over time in certain provinces. So that will that definitely will change the GHG and cost and financial impacts in some cases over time. So that's the reason for wanting to update this roadmap periodically, is to take into consideration those types of changes to the energy ecosystem. So yeah, so Robert was specifying looking at changes to reduce the intensity of the grid. So and gas supplies, yeah, there are definitely ambitious, in some cases, ambitious targets to decarbonize natural gas supplies, including through hydrogen and renewable natural gas. So that's something that's largely outside the purview of municipalities, except where sort of organic waste biodigestion can be used to feed into natural gas supplies. So we weren't able to tackle that substantially in the roadmap, but it's definitely part of the larger conversation that needs to happen around energy and transition and low carbon transitions. So we're nearing the end of our time. I'm just looking at the last few questions that have come in. There was a question about lithium energy storage. I would say that I don't know if we're best positioned to answer questions about that specifically. I know there are some concerns around the life cycle impacts of sort of battery storage technology. There was also a question about Energy Efficiency Alberta and some recent changes at the provincial level in Alberta and how that affects flow of information and data. I think it might be a bit early to say. My understanding is that some of the functions of Energy Efficiency Alberta will be transitioned to another provincial entity, and those will be consolidated. So I would suggest to stay tuned for more information about that. Okay, we're at 2 minutes before time, so we can try. If you have any remaining questions, feel free to add them, and we'll try to respond to them directly or after the webinar. I do want to close up by saying that to thank Yvonne, first of all, for this first look at the Municipal Energy Roadmap. And I'd really like to thank all the participants who joined us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to join us. I hope that it has inspired you to learn more about how the Green Municipal Fund can support your local energy and sustainability solutions, and also to connect with us. A reminder that the recording from today's webinar, including the audio and video, will be available within a few weeks on the FCM YouTube channel. And we'd really appreciate if you could take a few minutes to fill out the short survey that will pop up once you end the webinar. Your feedback will be very useful for us to help plan our future webinars. So thank you again, and please don't hesitate to reach out to us directly if you have any follow-up questions. We're happy to help.
Yes, thank you all.